One of the most influential figures in the history of Western civilization was the Greek philosopher Plato. Nearly 500 years before the birth of Christ, he composed a series of dramatic dialogues which have been read, performed, and discussed ever since then all over Europe. These dialogues are cast in the form of discussions between Plato's teacher, Socrates, and some of the young Greeks who surrounded him. In this recreation of the piece which is known as the Symposium, or the drinking party, 7 young men are celebrating a reunion in the grounds of their old school. They read, perform, and discuss the dialogue at a picnic dinner given in honor of their classics master, who agrees to play the part of Socrates. Apart from Socrates, Plato also included other portraits of historical figures of his own time. There is Aristophanes, one of the great writers of stage comedy, the brilliant statesman and general Alcibiades, whose dissolution and duplicity led indirectly to the downfall of Athens, and the great tragedian Agathon. But there is an odd man out at the banquet. Plato wrote in a silent nonentity called Aristodemus, and for the sake of completeness, the young men rope in a local photographer. They'd hired him to snap their party, and now they make him play the part of the man we never hear, but whom Plato used to remember and report what was said.
Would you tell me about
The drinking party is a discussion on the nature of human love. In Plato's Athens, women were excluded from any important position in social or emotional life, and love between men was held to be the highest form of human affection. As the party proceeds, each man puts forward his own definition, until finally Socrates annihilates them all with his grand proposal, which goes far beyond their ideas of ordinary love.
Mistook my meaning.
You've got an old doorman.
Oh, teachers, are you? You're old teachers.
The old click-stop doorman.
Oh, no.
Gentlemen.
What do I do? What do I do?
Don't do anything, just be.
Right.
Wrong.
Love is a great God, to be revered in earth and heaven, and especially because of his birth. Parents, he has none. No poet has described them. Love is the oldest of the gods. Love confers on us the greatest benefits. Above all, the principle by which we all should live, the whole time. The principle which neither family, nor position, nor wealth can bestow, but only love. So, I propose that as love is the oldest, so is love the most honorable of the gods, and most powerful in assisting men to achieve honor and happiness both here and hereafter.
Pausanias.
I cannot agree, Phaedrus, with the conditions laid down for our speeches, that they should be a simple and unqualified panegyric of love. If love had a single nature, it would be all very well, but love is not single. That being so, the better course would be to declare in advance which love it is that we have to praise. I will try to put the matter right by determining, first of all, which love ought to be our subject, before going on to praise him in such terms as he deserves. We all know Aphrodite is inseparably linked with love. If there were a single Aphrodite, there would be a single love. But as there are two Aphrodites, it follows that there must be two loves as well. Now, what are the two Aphrodites? One is the elder and is the daughter of Uranus and had no mother, and she we call heavenly Aphrodite. The other is younger, the child of Zeus and Dione, and is called common Aphrodite. There can be no doubt of the common nature of the love which goes with common Aphrodite. It is quite random in the effects which it produces, and it is this love which the baser sort of men feel. Its marks are, firstly, that it is physical rather than spiritual. Secondly, it prefers its objects to be as unintelligent as possible. Thirdly, it's felt for women quite as much as young men, because its only aim is the satisfaction of its desires, and it takes no account of the manner in which this is achieved. Now, let us move on to consider the code of behavior appropriate to lovers. In most cities other than our own, principles are laid down in black and white and are thus easily comprehensible. With us, it is more complicated. In Elis, Boeotia, and Sparta, and wherever men are somewhat illiterate, the code states quite simply that it is good to gratify a lover. In Ionia, however, and places under barbarian rule, it is quite the reverse. For where a country is governed by tyrants, it is not expedient that men should form free and strong attachments. In our city, as I said, things are more complicated. On the one hand, a lover is allowed, indeed encouraged, to do things that would disgrace him if he did them for any other motive than that of love. He may beg and beseech and perform services of such slavishness that a slave would disdain them, and this is regarded as something wholly beautiful. But on the other hand, a boy who causes men to fall in love with him is placed in the charge of a tutor whose task it is to see that the lover never comes near him. There is no absolute right and wrong in love, but everything depends on the circumstances. To yield to a bad man in a bad way is wrong. To yield to a good man in a good way is right. To place oneself at the disposal of another in the belief that in this way one may grow in knowledge or some other virtue is no disgrace. Such submission is not civility. We may conclude then that it is always honorable to yield to love if honor may be obtained by the yielding. Such love is heavenly love associated with a heavenly goddess. Such love is precious. It compels both states and individuals to discipline themselves and study to attain excellence. All other forms of love belong to the other goddess, common Aphrodite. And that, my dear Phaedrus, is the best I can do on the spur of the moment by way of praising love.
What's all that?
It says in my book that Aristophanes starts burping at this point.
It says in my text that it's hiccups.
Well, hiccups are very much like burps, aren't they, one way or the other?
Well, I think I will take advantage of your indisposition to say my piece now. Pausanias has made an admirable beginning, but he's not brought his argument to an adequate conclusion, and I think, therefore, it's incumbent upon me to put the finishing touches to it. He was quite right, I think, in the distinction he made between the two kinds of love, but my professional experience as a doctor has convinced me that love does not merely exist in men's souls with beautiful bodies as its object, but that it has many other objects, many other spheres of action, the bodies of all animals, for example, the plants that grow in the earth, practically all existing things. Love is a great and wonderful God whose influence extends everywhere to embrace the world of gods and men alike. I will begin with medicine to show my respect for the craft. And I think that we find an analogy here, don't we, in dealing with men's bodies with what Pausanias was saying just a moment ago, that just as honour and dishonour consist in yielding to the desires of good and vicious men, respectively, so it is the business of a good practitioner to gratify the sound and healthy parts of the body and to thwart the unsound and diseased parts. And this is the business of what we call medicine, isn't it? The knowledge of the principles of love at work in the body with regard to repletion and evacuation. Yes. Medicine, then, I repeat, is entirely under the control of this God. So are the arts of physical culture and of farming, and that the same is true also of music must be plain to anyone who gives the matter the smallest attention. This is presumably what Heraclitus means to say, though he's not entirely happy in his choice of words, when he talks of a unity which agrees with itself by being at variance, as in the stringing of a bow or a lyre. Of course, it's quite illogical to speak of a concord being in discord, or of it consisting of factors which are still in discord at the time that they compose it. What he presumably meant to say was that the art of music produces a harmony out of factors which are first in discord but subsequently in concord, namely treble and bass. Of course, there can be no accord between treble and bass while they're in discord, for concord is consonance, consonance is a kind of agreement. There can be no agreement while the factors are in discord. Of course, it is possible to harmonize discordant factors, just as rhythm, for instance, is the combination of fast and slow, factors which are originally discordant, but consequently in agreement. Moreover, the seasons of the year are so ordained as to exhibit the operation of both kinds of love. When the elements of which I spoke... did I speak of those? Oh, well, the elements which I didn't speak, hot and cold, dry and wet, are bound together in love which is orderly and combined harmoniously in due proportion, then man and the animals and plants thrive and are healthy, take no harm. But when inordinate love gets the upper hand in this matter of the seasons, then all sorts of destruction and so on are the result. Let's see, from these epidemics, many other various ailments are apt to spring, floods, hail and blight, are the result of this mutual, disorderly aggression of the elements under the influence of love. And of course the effects of this influence upon the courses of the stars and the seasons of the year are the object of that department of knowledge that we call astronomy. Yes.
So then, love in general.
So, yes, this is the winding up, isn't it?
We're
yes,
pretty nearly, thank God.
So then, love in general exercises a multifarious and great, or, to speak more accurately, an omnipotent sway. But that love, whose object is good, whose fulfilment is attended by sobriety and virtue, possesses the greatest power, and is the author of all our happiness, and makes it possible for us to live in harmony and concord with our fellow creatures and with the gods who are our masters. Oh dear, the inordinate elements. Well, it may be that in my panegyric of love I've omitted several points, but if so, I promise you it has been unwittingly, and if I have omitted anything, then I think it's for you, Aristophanes, to fill in the gaps, though of course you may be planning to praise the god in a different way. However...
Very boring speech.
Oh, did you think so?
Very boring indeed.
Oh,
I think we'll have to go inside, you know. I think the rain is going to wash us out. I'll do this. I'll do this out here. I'm going to do the speech out here. If you come, we'll start now. If you take the book, and it's up here, and you can settle there. Okay? It's quite true, Eryximachus. I shall take a different line from you and Pausanias. I shall try and initiate you into the real secret of love's power. It's all to do with the prototype of man and the modifications that have been introduced to the model. Once upon a time, there were 3 sexes: male, female, and hermaphrodite. Every human being was circular with a round back and sides. They had 4 hands and 4 legs and 2 identical faces looking in opposite directions. They had 4 ears and 2 sets of private parts. They could walk upright, like us, forwards or backwards, but they could also use all 8 limbs like a cartwheel, over and over, and very fast. There were 3 sexes because the male babies came out of the sun, the female babies out of the earth, and the hermaphrodites out of the moon, which is half sun and half earth. Naturally, the babies were circular, like their parents. They were very strong and very ambitious. So they climbed up to heaven and attacked the gods. At last, Zeus had an idea. "I'll cut them in half," he said. "Then they'll be too weak to be very wicked, and there'll be more of them to send us sacrifices." And so he cut them in half. He slit them down the middle like pickled onions or hard-boiled eggs. Then he told Apollo to turn their faces round so they could see the gash so they wouldn't forget. And then he healed the wounds. So Apollo turned their heads round and pulled the skin together and tied it in a knot at the navel. And then he smoothed the wrinkles away and shaped the breast with his shoemaker's smoothing iron. But he left a few wrinkles round the navel itself, you see, to remind men of what they had once been. Now, every half body was desperate for its other half. When they met, they embraced. They went on embracing. They refused to do anything else. And they neglected their business, and they died of hunger. When one half body died, the one left went off in search of another free half body and embraced that. More and more died. At last, Zeus took pity on them. Now, up till this time, their reproductive organs had been on the outside, and there'd been no sexual intercourse, and the males had had emissions on the ground like grasshoppers.
Like what?
Grasshoppers. And now Zeus got the idea of moving their sexual organs round to the front and invented copulation. So you see, we are only half men, like flatfish or banana splits. And all the time, we're looking for the bit that belongs to us. When someone actually meets this other half, there's an overwhelming feeling of love and intimacy. They can hardly bear to be parted for a moment. They may not be able to say exactly what they gain from being together. It's an instinct that can't be put into words. It's all because once upon a time, we were wholes, not halves, before we were split in two. And we all know very well what will happen if we misbehave, because we may be cut in half again, right down the nose, like relief carvings in profile. And so let us reverence the gods, in case they cut us in half again, and especially love, because he'll help us to find our other half, the bit that belongs to us.
Well, we can all laugh. It's not really quite so daft as it sounds. The human body is, in fact, hermaphrodite. If we were to dissect a male human body, we'd find it had rudimentary female organs, and vice versa. We are what we are simply because one set of organs has developed at the expense of the others. For example, each of us has a tiny little womb at the base of our bladder. We even have nipples, though we can never suckle our young. So it's not so mad after all.
Can we get some more wine?
Yes, there'll be
Some more wine. Where's
We'll have a drink and wait for the sun.
Anyway, Agathon goes off on a completely different tack, doesn't he? He gets right away from Aristophanes' biological clowning. How's it go? Of all the gods, love is the happiest, for he is the best and most beautiful.
All right, all right. Don't hog all my lines. I can manage.
First, I wish to describe how I ought to speak, and then to speak. It seems that all who've spoken so far have not actually praised love, but rather have they congratulated mankind on the good things love has given him. No one has actually described the giver of these good things. The correct procedure in a panegyric is first to describe the person one is praising, and then describe what he has done. We should do the same with love. I say then, if I may say so without offense, that of all the gods, love is the happiest. Though all the gods are happy, but love is the best and the most beautiful. How is he the most beautiful? Well, first of all, Phaedrus, because he is the youngest of the gods. He himself proves this by fleeing from old age and associating with the young. So I cannot agree with Phaedrus that love is the most ancient of the gods. On the contrary, he is the youngest. And being young, he is sensitive. So sensitive that it would take another Homer to describe how sensitive he is. For love dwells in the softest places of all. Love dwells in the souls of gods and men. Not in all souls, for when even he finds one that is hard, he leaves it. But when he finds one that is tender and sensitive like himself, there he abides. Of love's beauty much more might be said, but I will pass on to love's goodness. Love neither suffers wrong nor wrongs. Nothing that happens to him comes by violence. Nothing he does is violent. For everyone willingly serves love in everything. For whatever is granted by willing giver to willing recipient is always just. Now for love's wisdom. First of all, he is so clever a poet that he can make anyone a poet, that is to say, anyone who is touched by love. Nobody can teach others an art unless he excels in it himself. So therefore we must assume that if love can make people into artists, he must be an artist too. As for the general creation of all living things, it is obvious that this is the work of love. Without love, nothing would be born. So, Phaedrus, it seems to me that love is first of all supreme in beauty and goodness himself, and secondly, the supreme inspirer of beauty and goodness in others. May I express this in verse? Love is a peace on earth, a calm at sea, when winds are hushed and sleep effaces weeping. Through love we cease to be strangers and become friends. Through love we enjoy all gatherings such as this. Through love we enjoy festivals, dances, and sacrifices. Through love there is gentleness and an end to savagery. Through love there is goodwill, for he hates ill will. Gracious and kindly, he is cultivated by the wise and admired by the gods, envied by those who do not possess him, treasured by those who do. Father of daintiness, delicacy, voluptuousness, grace, longing, and desire. Careful of good men's happiness, careless of bad men's disaster. At work or in conversation, in moments of peril or moments of desire, love is your friend and helper, your soldier and guide. Ornament of gods and men, loveliest of singers, leading mankind in songs of praise, and casting a spell of song over heaven and earth.
Beautiful. A beautiful speech. But of course, it has to be demolished.
Actually, as far as I can remember, what happens is that Socrates simply demolishes all the generalizations which you've been making about love, and then goes on to describe love in terms which are even more comprehensive.
Oh, no, that's not quite fair. Surely the point is that everything each one of us says is true. It's just that some of us go deeper than others.
No, I think there's a little more to it than that. Agathon has to be demolished simply because his account of love becomes irrelevant by now. Agathon's love is a god, a splendor, a very positive, describable power. Socrates' love, my love that is simply a lack. A question mark, if you like. A blank or a negative. Now, once you think of love in this way, there's simply no point in trying to paint a picture of it. You can't paint pictures of negatives. Instead, you have to look around for appropriate things for your quest, suitable objects to need. The idea of love as a lack of something is much more practical.
So love is much more like Socrates than Agathon. That's partly it, isn't it? I mean, that it's not a splendid, elegant, beautiful person, but a searcher, an inquirer.
Well, in a way, yes. But you see, Socrates himself is demolished by this figure of Diotima. He is reduced to ignorance by a mysterious woman whom we never see. He simply reports his conversation with her, rather like you, Aristophanes, report the conversation you've heard with us. She creates the image of love as something quite beyond our understanding. And even Socrates can't work it out. But that's enough discussion. I'll try now to give you the account of love which I once heard from a woman of Mantinea called Diotima. I had used very much the same sort of language as Agathon. I had called love a great and beautiful god. But she proved to me that since love must have an object, and that therefore love is the need of that object, and since love is love of beauty, then love is the need for beauty. Love lacks beauty. Can love be ugly, I asked. Not at all, she replied. He is not good and beautiful, but then neither is he bad and ugly. He is somewhere in between beauty and ugliness, goodness and badness. He is not a god, but then neither is he a mortal. He is a spirit whose function it is to bridge the two worlds, that of the gods and that of mortals, and to prevent the universe from falling in two. Who are his parents, I asked. That's a long story, she answered. On the day of Aphrodite's birth, the gods were feasting. One of the guests was Contrivance, the son of Invention. After dinner, Poverty came to the door, begging. Contrivance was by this time drunk on nectar, wine not having been invented, and had gone into the gardens to lie down. And there Poverty found him and decided to sleep with him. That's how love was conceived on Aphrodite's birthday, the birthday of beauty. So love became the servant of beauty, she went on, and makes beauty his business. Poverty is his mother, and he is always poor. Far from being sensitive and beautiful, as most people seem to think he is. He's tough and weather-beaten, shoeless and homeless. He always sleeps out in fields, on the doorstep, in the street. Like his mother, he lives in want. But his father is Contrivance. Love is a trickster and a poacher, highly strung, resourceful and impudent. A magician who noses out crumbs of wisdom and beauty and hoards all of them. He's a great debater and a philosopher. He is neither mortal nor immortal, she went on. On one and the same day, he'll live and flourish if things go well, and die if they go badly. But he'll always come to life again through the strength he's inherited from his father. Whatever he wins, he always loses. He's never either rich or poor, wise or ignorant. He's always somewhere in between. Of course, love is a lover of wisdom, since wisdom is one of the most beautiful things there is. And that's why love is somewhere halfway between wisdom and ignorance. You mixed up love and the beloved object, Socrates. That's why you thought love was beautiful. What is love's function, I asked. Well, she replied, in what does love of beauty consist? What is the aim of this love? To obtain the beauty, I answered. Yes, she said. To obtain the beauty, to obtain the good, because this is happiness. Now, in fact, every desire for what is good and conducive to happiness is love. But we have isolated a particular kind of love and given it alone the name of what belongs to the whole. In the general sense of the word, love includes every desire for what is conducive to happiness. But this desire expresses itself in many ways, and those whose desire is a desire for money, or physical fitness or wisdom are not called lovers, but they are. Now, she went on, there's a theory that love is a desire for the lost other half of ourselves. I don't agree with this. Love is not a desire for a half or a whole unless that half or whole is good. Men are willing to amputate their limbs if they discover them to be diseased. Love must be a desire for what is good. Don't you agree? Yes, I said. And the aim of love is the possession of this good. Certainly, I said. And furthermore, its perpetual possession. Yes. So love is the desire for the perpetual possession of what is good, she concluded. Now we can consider the function of love, Diotima went on. This is quite simply procreation in what is beautiful. The object of love is not just beauty, as you said, Socrates. It is to procreate and bring forth in beauty. The nearest a mortal ever comes to immortality. This is true even of all nature, not only human beings. What is mortal seeks to become immortal. Look at the behavior of animals and birds. When it's time for them to procreate, they suffer a kind of love sickness, first of all, from their desire to mate, and then from a desire to provide for their young, for whom they are prepared to fight at any odds, or to die of starvation, provided that the young survive. For if the young survive, the race remains immortal in the only way a mortal can be immortal. Gods can be forever the same, that is their kind of immortality. Mortals can only attain immortality by this process in which new members take the place of the old. That is why animals look after their young. They are the means whereby they secure immortality. But am I really to believe this, Diotima? I asked. Certainly, she answered. I'll give you another example. Human ambition. Desire for glory is a very strong motive. Would Alcestis have died for Admetus, or Achilles for Patroclus, if they had not believed that their courage would live forever in men's memories? Desire for fame is a very strong incentive, and the better the man, the stronger the incentive, because a man like that is deeply in love with immortality. Those whose creative instinct is physical express their love by turning to women and begetting children. Those whose instinct is spiritual conceive spiritually. Think of what Homer and Hesiod conceived, and the other good poets. Who could fail to envy them their children? Or Lycurgus the lawgiver, consider how his children have saved Greece. Some men have even been worshipped on account of spiritual children like these. No man has ever been worshipped for his physical children. So far, Socrates, she said, I've dealt with mysteries that even you can enter. Whether you can grasp the final revelation, I don't know. But I'll try now to show you the way to go. Love is something a man should begin to practice young. First, he should fall in love with a beautiful person, and with him beget beautiful thoughts. Then he should notice how beauty in one person is very like beauty in another, and learn to acknowledge that the beauty he sees in different bodies is all one and the same thing. Then he must give up this intense passion for one person and realize the unimportance of such passion. The next stage is to realize the superiority of spiritual over physical beauty, so that when he meets someone who is virtuous and ugly, he may be content with that love, and thus bring forth ideas that will improve people younger than himself. From there, he will come to see the beauty of institutions and moral practices, and to realize that all this beauty is one. Then he will indeed find physical beauty to be unimportant. From the contemplation of morals, he should move on to the contemplation of science, beauty in the widest sense. Here, gazing out on the whole ocean of beauty, from a heart overflowing with love of wisdom, he will continue to bring forth great ideas until he last sees. the science of beauty itself. Now, Socrates, she said, try to follow me as closely as you can. The man who has been led thus far into the mysteries, and who has directed his attention to the various stages of beauty in the proper order, will suddenly see a truly miraculous beauty, the final end to all his efforts. This beauty is eternal. It was never born and never dies, never increases and never diminishes. It is not beautiful here and ugly there, beautiful now and ugly then, beautiful in one direction and ugly in another direction, beautiful in one place, ugly in another place. It is not the beauty of hands or face or anything physical, not like the beauty of thought or the beauty of science. It is not beauty that depends on anything other than itself, on earth or sky or living creatures or anything whatsoever. It is absolute beauty, self-sufficient, unique, eternal. All beautiful things partake of it, but in such a way that while they come into being and perish, it neither diminishes or increases or changes in any way at all. When you begin to catch glimpses of this beauty, Socrates, then you are very near the end. This is the place where a man's life ought to be spent, in contemplation of absolute beauty. Once you've seen it, it will be impossible for you to think in terms any more of golden robes and beautiful bodies, things that now entrance you. But think of the ecstasy you experience in the company of your beloved, a beauty small compared to all the beauty there is. Even this beauty is enough to make you oblivious of food and drink. What kind of ecstasy then will the man experience who lives in the company of absolute beauty itself? Pure, unmixed, and unadulterated with all the colors and flesh and rubbish of mortality. Absolute and alone. Do you think his life will be a poor one? Only such a man, in constant union with absolute beauty, will bring forth not reflected images of goodness, but goodness itself, because he is in contact, not with the reflection, but with the truth. Once he has brought forth true goodness, he will become the friend of God. And so, if it is possible for man, he will become immortal.
Socrates.
Terribly sorry I'm late. It was a monumental cock-up with a train. Some yokel misdirected me. I've been charging across a couple of ploughed fields. Hello. Hello, sir. Well, good grief. Oh, yes. I'm afraid I didn't really get a chance to, let's see now.
We've got an Aristophanes this year.
Yeah. Well, I'll just...
Alcibiades,
What?
you should come in drunk here.
Yeah, well...
You'd better go out and come back again drunk with 2 flute girls. And also, your head is to be crowned with a thick wreath of ivy, and violets with ribbons hanging down, and then we send the girls away, and then you make a speech in honor of Socrates.
Yes. First, he puts a wreath on Socrates, and it goes on about Socrates playing on us all like a flute, and then, yes. There's all this business about him fancying Socrates. I mean, I can't read all this. I mean, listen. I was expecting the sort of things a lover says to his darling. And then I resolved to make a direct assault on him. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I'm not sure. That Plato wasn't cleverer than that. I'm not sure it wasn't meant to be a bit ridiculous. Anyhow, is hero worship ridiculous? Is strong affection between people of the same sex ridiculous? Even gestures of affection? Elizabethan men embraced each other. The Russians kiss each other still. Which is more natural? Them or us, who don't even shake hands much anymore? It's a formal thing, too. After the high seriousness of Diotima, Plato brings in some grotesque comedy. It's this all-round view the Greeks had. Love is grotesque as well as serious. Love is a satire.
We ought to have the bit about Socrates on campaign. Read the bit about Potidia.
After this, we served together in the Potidia campaign. We were messmates, actually. When it came to sticking things out, Socrates not only beat me, he was the toughest man in the army. When we were cut off, we'd go short on food, of course. No one could last out as well as Socrates. But when we did have plenty, he was the one who enjoyed it most. Drinking now. He only drank when we made him, but when he did, he drank us all under the table. Nobody's ever got Socrates drunk. I think you'll see what I mean shortly. The winters are very hard there too, but cold doesn't worry Socrates. Once there was a terrible frost and no one would go out of doors. Or if they did, they wrapped themselves up in all sorts of strange things and swathed their feet in felt and sheepskin. But Socrates went out with nothing on except his ordinary clothes and walked over the ice barefooted without any difficulty, while everyone else was in trouble in spite of their wrappings. The soldiers were very suspicious. They thought he was laughing at them. Here's another story. One morning he was thinking out some problem and stood still on the spot to reason it out. He couldn't solve it, but he didn't give up. He stayed there, thinking. By midday, people started to notice. They were remarking to each other, "Socrates has been standing there since morning." After dinner that night, some Ionians brought their bedding outside. It was summertime, thinking that it would be cooler to sleep out, and also wanting to see whether Socrates would move or stay there all night. Well, he stayed there till dawn. When the sun rose, he said a prayer to it and went away.